Did you know that there are 21 irrefutable laws of leadership? Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your leadership coach, Glassstein, with another message that could take your leadership to the next level. Let's get in this. Today, we're going to be talking about the law of influence. I love this law because it really tells the truth about leadership, and it's kind of heart-wrenching because your previous misconceptions about leadership, this will kind of like tear that apart. Really tear it apart. So I'm glad to see that everyone's here, and I'm just hoping that I can just add as much value as I can with this chapter, and I just want to get in it, give you the meat of it, give you my understanding, and I want you guys to interact with me So when I ask you to write something down in the comments, just go ahead and write it down because it will help you to remember. It's like we're having this dialogue, and you're responding to me, and I'm responding to you. It's kind of a back and forth. So it helps you to remember. So when you go out into the world, or into your job, or into your entrepreneurial pursuits, you'll be able to kind of go on autopilot, so to speak. Let's think of this as like programming yourself to kind of just embody these laws. All right. So the law today is the law of influence. And I love this law because it really sets the leaders and those who are not leaders apart. and you'll see what I'm talking about soon. All right, let's get in. The law of influence. The true measure of influence. The true measure of leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. The true measure of leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. And if you don't have the book, please get the book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws by John Maxwell. It is a book that you will have to treasure throughout your leadership journey. You'll be going back to again and again and again and again and again. It is that serious. And I hope that you're following me. We're on page 11, the law of influence. The true measure of leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And I love how he starts this chapter. He starts this chapter with a couple of questions. What do leaders look like? Do they always look powerful, impressive, or charismatic? And how do they measure the effectiveness of a leader? And how do you measure the effectiveness of a leader? Can you put two people side by side and instantly tell which is the better leader? Very important questions. These are the questions people have asked for hundreds of years. And there's been many myths out there as to who is a leader and who is not a leader. That's why I love this law. It kind of gives it to you straight. There's no middle ground with this law. One of the most effective leaders of the 20th century, and he's talking about Mother Teresa, one of the most effective leaders of the 21st century, did not look like a leader. She did not look like what we presume that a leader should look like. She wasn't tall. She wasn't commanding. She wasn't charismatic, as we would label someone now as charismatic. I'm sure she was in her own right. But she didn't look the part. She was just a humble woman going through Calcutta doing great work, helping the poor. That's all she was. And that's something that we really got to look into. We really got to look into ourselves and understand that we've been putting these false facades on leadership, and that those false facades, as a leader, has to be this, he has to look like this, or she has to wear this type of a suit from this name brand, or her hair has to be this way, or she has to have blue eyes, or he has to have brown eyes. All these misconceptions. And you know what that does? That kind of disqualifies us from being leaders, from seeing ourselves as leaders. Every time you say to yourself that a leader's like this, and you look at yourself and you're saying to yourself, well, I'm not like that, what you're doing is that you're disqualifying yourself from leadership. You're disqualifying yourself from being a leader. And that hurts you. And that's why it was so important that he talked about Mother Teresa. And I could talk about Harriet Tubman. And we could go, the list goes on. Amelia Earhart. The list goes on and on and on. Oprah, when she first started, she didn't look like a leader. That was one of her biggest self-esteem issues. That was her thing. She didn't think that she looked like a leader. She didn't think that she acted like a leader. Abraham Lincoln wasn't a leader, wasn't acting like a leader for a lot of years of his life. And so when we start talking about leaders, let's take away all that stuff. Let's take away the charismatic leaders have to be loud and outspoken. Let's strip that away, because that's why he started off with Mother Teresa. I think that was the most humblest avatar that he can find that really embodied what true leadership is. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Let's go. Let's dive into this. This is good. I love this. I love the Mother Teresa thing. He says that Mother Teresa, she founded and led an organization called Missionaries of Charity, reaching more than 4,000 members. If you look at pictures of Mother Teresa, it will show you how this little unassuming woman just touched the lives of so many people around the world. I'm talking about Mother Teresa right now. And I'm all the way across the ocean. And I know of her. I read her book. I read the good that she does. I read about her love. I read about her prayers. She is now a saint. I think is Saint Teresa. And put in the comments if I've misspoken, but I'm pretty sure that she's saint. She's been upgraded into sainthood. Now, the other thing is that one of the things that I want you to notice about Mother Teresa, that her influence, where that came from. And it was in her ability to serve. I mean, she was serving people that had leprosy, tuberculosis, and other diseases. She would care for them, babies, older, mature people whose families had abandoned them. She would care for them. Very powerful woman. Very powerful woman. Very powerful woman. A true leader. Like, not just because she built this organization, but because of her ability to serve. And that's what I get out of it. You know, it says that people from all walks of life and from nations around the globe respect her. And when she spoke, people listened. I mean, it talked about the National Prayer Breakfast in 1994, where Bill Clinton and Al Gore and all these other dignitaries were in attendance, where she talked about abortion and how wrong that was. She talked about, how people forget their elders and throw them in nursing homes. And that right there, those topics right there are very sensitive topic, especially to those in the U.S. And that would have probably caused people to start reacting with boos, with boos and she has no right to say that. I can do whatever I want with my body and all this stuff. But it didn't, because she was that much respected. And I love it. She was that much respected, man. I mean, when I read this, I was like, wow. Now, I like this. I like what he said. In fact, every time Mother Teresa spoke, people listened. Why? She was a real leader. And when a real leader speaks, people listen. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. A real leader. Have you ever come across a real leader? I mean, someone that just embodied leadership. Someone that if they asked you to do something, volunteer or give up your time or sacrifice something, that you would just do it. Have you ever encountered anyone like that? Someone with that much influence. Maybe it's your pastor. Maybe it's your mom. Maybe it's your wife or your husband or your boss or whomever. Put it in the comments. I would like to see. Put it in the comments below. Just one person and their occupation, the way you met them, and what did they do to exemplify that they were a real, to demonstrate, let's say that's a better word, to demonstrate that they were a better leader, that they were a real leader. Yeah, what did they do to demonstrate that they were a real leader? Put that in the comments below. If you've ever encountered someone that was a real leader, or someone that was passed away, someone you really respect in the past that is no longer here, put their names in the comment below and why. And he goes on to say, this is the second part. He says, leadership is not. When people hear that someone has an impressive title or assigned a leadership position, they assume that the individual is a leader. Now, how many times that we've all fallen into that trap? Just because someone has a title, just because someone's in a position, we call them a leader. How many times? So many times. I love this part. This is my favorite part of the book. True leadership cannot be awarded, appointed, or assigned. True leadership cannot be awarded, appointed, or assigned. It comes only from influence, and that cannot be mandated. It must be earned. The only thing a title can buy is little time. I love that. The only thing a title can buy you is little time. Either to increase your level of influence with others or to undermine it. That's my favorite little section in this chapter. My favorite little section. So leadership is not appointed. Leadership is not a position. Leadership is not a title. Leadership is not something that is given to you. It is something that you earn. Just like Mother Teresa earned it. How did she earn it? And we got to look at this. She earned it through service. My favorite book said, the greatest among you will be your servant. It's through service. Through service. Everyone that has done anything significant for the good of humanity has done one thing and one thing only. They've served humanity. All right? If you agree with that, put it in the comments below. Service. Service. Yeah, write that word down. Service. Because I want that etched in your brain. Service. Now, he goes on to talk about the 5 myths of leadership. And he goes on to say that there's plenty of misconceptions about leadership, which we alluded to in the beginning. And I just want to go through some of those, some of these myths right quick. The myth of management. I love this because he distinguishes between a manager and a leader. Now, you got to ask yourself, I'm going ahead of myself. I wanted to say that can a manager also be a leader? But I'll answer that in a few. But for right now, let's stick to the script. A widespread misconception is that leading and managing are one and the same. That, in my experience, is not true. There's a difference between a manager and a leader. The main difference between the two is that leadership is about influencing people. Right? While managers are more concerned with systems, processes, and how can we keep things the way they are? How can we continue the way we've been going? Right? I like this, what he says. He says the best way to test whether a person can lead rather than just manage is to ask them to create positive change. Managers sometimes want things the way they are. They want to keep things the way they are. They want to keep the processes and the procedures the way they are. If it's not broke, let's not fix it. But leaders are kind of different, right? We're different, right? We go into the organization and we just can see so many things that would require change. We could see how to make it better. We don't want to leave it as like Carly Figueroa. She and I know I mispronounced her last name. Okay, cool. She's a change agent. She went into Hewlett Packard and just changed how Hewlett Packard did business. Now, some may argue for her or against her, but the fact is that Carly is a real leader, y'all. Real leader. All right, let's go on. We understand again that there is a difference between simple difference between a manager and a leader is that managers are more involved with systems and processes and keeping things the same. A leader is more into influencing people, building relationships, making sure that that everyone is getting along on the team, that everyone is focused, that everyone is working in such a way that they're a cohesive team. There's a teamwork involved. If one person, if someone's dragging behind, that manager that leader is there to motivate, to coach, to talk to inspire that person to move on, because that leader is more apt to building relationships than a manager. Right? So just think of leaders that way. Leaders are more relationship based. Leadership is more that you are not coming to work to serve me. I am, as the leader, coming to work to serve you. Whatever resources that you need to be able to do your job effectively and be successful, I am here to facilitate that. That's a leader. All right, number 2, the entrepreneur myth. Yeah, don't we get kind of confused with that? Like, we think entrepreneurs are automatically leaders. Some are, no doubt. But a lot of them aren't leaders. A lot of them will tell you that they have to hire, other people to manage. Other people to lead their team, to build that team, to build that influence, because they're not exactly people persons. They're more like, okay, there's an opportunity here, and they go in and make something of that opportunity. They're more go-getters. Just because you're a go-getter doesn't mean that you can lead people. And it doesn't mean that people are going to like you, that that you're that type A go get and build $1 million company. It doesn't mean people are going to follow you. But people will follow leaders. People will follow people with influence. People will follow people that serve them. People will follow people that care. People will follow people that listen to them. That's what a leader does. So don't get fooled by the misconception that, just because you see an entrepreneur out there or some sort of, person that's, building $1 million. I made $1 million yesterday because I did this X, Y, and Z. Don't get him or her confused of being a leader. That's not the case. That's not the case at all. Number 3, knowledge myth. Knowledge is power. I believe that knowledge is power, but I more so believe that applied knowledge is power. Applied knowledge is power. Sometimes we assume that just because someone's knowledgeable, someone's smart, um, and they could say a couple of big words, that they're leaders. It's not true. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and one of my CEOs of a company that I will not name in the government. Everybody, you guys know that I worked as a defense contractor for the government, for the DOD, DOJ, and DHS, and all those other alphabets. And one of the things that really impressed me with the CEO was the fact that when he spoke to us, he spoke in easy to recognize and understand words. I mean, just like one of the guys. I mean, you can go out and hang out with this guy and have a beer. That's how cool he was. And we got the message. And the thing is that people felt like they knew him. They felt like that we felt like that he was one of us. And that's how leaders make you feel. That's the influence that they have on you. They innately care about their people. So that's the knowledge myth. And I like this. It says, I like when he says this. John Maxwell, he's just the coolest. I mean, he threw this in there, right? He says you can visit any major university and meet brilliant research scientists and philosophers whose ability to think is so high that it is off the charts, but whose ability to lead is so low that it doesn't even register on the charts. Wow. And that's true. Neither IQ nor education necessarily equates to leadership. Powerful. Now, number 4, the pioneer myth. Just because someone has done something first doesn't mean that they're a leader. He talks about Edmund Hillary, who was the first to climb Mount Everest, right? In 1953, right? You would think, well, automatically you start to think, well, he's done such a great feat that he's a leader. Nope, don't think like that. Don't think like that. No, banish that thought. Just because someone has done something first that you haven't done, you automatically put them in that category of leader? No, they just the first one that have done it. They just the first one to have done that. That's all that means. And usually they're not the first one to have done it. Usually the person that was guiding them up there, in this case, it was John Hunt, was guiding Mr. Hillary to up Everest, was the first one to really climb Mount Everest. So don't be too quick to put people in that position. Just because you're the first one to come out with a certain product, that doesn't mean that person is a leader. It's every time you see it in social media. Every time someone comes out with something first, everybody want to put them in this category of leader. No, don't do that. John Maxwell says, to be a leader, a person has to not only be out front, but also have people intentionally coming behind him or her, following his lead, and acting on his vision. Being a trendsetter is not the same as being a leader. And I totally agree with that. If you agree with that, I agree that trendsetters are not leaders. Write that in the comment. Trendsetters are not leaders. Trendsetters are not leaders. Put that in the comment below. Trendsetters are not leaders. I want you to get that into your head. Just because someone has done something first doesn't mean that they're a leader. Let's go to number 5, position myth. Now, we've already touched on this, that people think that just because a person has a certain position, that they're a leader. Just because they introduce you to your manager or your supervisor doesn't mean that he or she is a leader. No, doesn't mean that at all. For me, I like to go in, when I go into, when I was working for corporate America, I like to go in and kind of survey the scene. You know, and what I mean by that is I like to just get to know people and to see if they're a manager or if they're a leader. And here's the way I would kind of see if this person was a real leader. If I felt a connection, if I felt that this leader connected with me, that was a leader. If that leader couldn't connect with me, or that manager in that position couldn't connect with me, that supervisor couldn't connect with me, not even as an employee, as a human being, if they couldn't connect with me, I didn't see them as a leader. I saw them as managers. And it was okay. They did their job, I did my job, and I got things done. But with some of my, you know, with some of my leaders, my VPs or presidents of companies that I used to work for, I mean, we connected. And I would work 16 hours a day. I would work 18 hours a day. Because I would work 24 hours a day. And sometimes that when I say 24 hours, I mean 24 hours. No sleep. Because there was a deadline. And they just had to ask. And I'd be like, cool, I'll stay. I'll miss a holiday. Because that's how much influence that they had. That's how much care that they have for me. They came into work to serve me. And it was only just my privilege to give back to them and to serve them in any way capacity. I wanted to see them succeed. Because I know their success was my success. So don't get into that stuff about, you know, position. That doesn't mean it. He says that here, Stanley Huffy affirmed that it's not the position that makes the leader. It's the leader that makes the position. Now, write that down somewhere in your notes. It's not the position that makes the leader. It's the leader that makes the position. Awesome, awesome quote. Now we're into this. We're into the section that says who's the real leader, and he talks about this this game show that was like To Tell the Truth, and there were actors and participants that were just lying and taking up a role, and some people couldn't tell. Now he kind of correlates that to when it comes to identifying a real leader. That task of telling the difference is much easier. So if you want to check, it says that don't listen to the claims of a person professing to be a leader. Don't never listen to the claim of a person professing to be a leader. Don't examine his credentials. I don't care how many credentials that he has. Don't examine that. Don't check his title. Check his influence. The proof of leadership is found in the followers. Who's following him and why? That's where the proof is at. That's why I said in the beginning, the law of influence is like kind of clear cut. It's either you have influence on people or you don't. And if you don't have influence on people, you're not a leader, according to the law of influence. And we're just going to focus on here and not give too much opinions on this. And if you have some insights, go ahead and put in the comments below. But we want to focus on the law of leadership according to John Maxwell, right? And and he even talks about his first job out of college. I remember listening to this like years, I think like 10, 15 years ago. Him tell the story at a company when he was brought on to as one of our speakers to train us. And I remember sitting in the audience listening to him talk about his first church that he was the leader, and how I forgot that the guy name was Claude, and he always tells this story, and it's funny when you hear it in person. And Claude and Mr. Maxwell, they had a kind of unique relationship where Claude will watch him pretend to be the leader, and everyone would look to Claude for guidance as to whether they listen to him or not. And usually Claude will undermine his leadership. And when he found that out, instead of getting all disgruntled and upset, what he did was he befriended Claude and kind of got Claude's kind of was like a mentorship from Claude, where he would ask Claude for his advice before he would share whatever to the team. And if Claude would agree with it, he was good to go. Everybody was like good to go. Claude was shaking his head yes, everybody was good to go with it. So like in your corporation, when you come in, or wherever you go in as a leader, especially as a first-time leader, don't just go in, don't just rush in and try to have everyone to kind of bow down to you. That's the wrong phrase. Let's say just everyone has to do what you say, right? Don't go in with that mentality. Go in with the mentality as to kind of lay back, survey the scene, and figure out who has the most influence on that team. Figure out who do people really listen to. Who is that person? There's always a person around. And sometimes, what I've found is that sometimes that person is not on the team. Sometimes that person is outside the team. And if you really watch, you will find that person. Because there are people on your team that will go outside of your team for advice. Who do they go to? Who are they waiting for the heads up to kind of be to kind of, they're like, okay, we'll do this because this person agrees. Befriend that person, whoever she is. Befriend her. Whoever he is, befriend him and get to know him. And do an apprenticeship with him or a mentorship with him, and just kind of seek his guidance. Because when you're coming in, you don't know the organization, you don't know these people, and they don't know you, unless you've been on the team for a while, and then you just got promoted and stuff like that. And then still you want to get someone that has more influence than you, right? Or you want to work yourself up. If you're working from the bottom, if you're working from your bottom and wanting to get to that promotion level where you be the leader, make sure you're working on your influence of people. Make sure you're serving people. Make sure people see you as a person that they can trust. Some advice. The true measure of leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And he talks about Margaret Thatcher said this brilliant quote. She says, "Being in power is like being a lady. If you have to tell people you are not." I love that. Why do some people emerge as leaders while others can't influence people no matter how hard they try? I love that question. He talks about several ways um, um, several traits that why leaders sometimes miss the mark when it comes to influencing people. And the number one trait that he talks about is character. And we spoke about that earlier. Leader can't connect. I can't connect. If I can't connect with you, if people can't connect with you, if my coworkers can't connect with you, there's something in that character, maybe. And I don't mean there's anything bad in that character. I'm just saying that there's something with your character that kind of leaves us out, kind of leaves us outside. Like you're kind of closed. You're a good manager. You know about systems and processes and all this stuff. You're a good manager. And you're good at managing. You're good at keeping things, on an even keel. You're good at that. You're good. We get our paychecks on time. You're good. Our times are logged in. Our PDPs are done on time. You're good at that stuff. But we just can't connect with you. And that's character. That I'm just trying to show you that it's not always character, it's not always something bad. It's not always something negative. A person could just be that type A type of person that just doesn't, that type of personality that just doesn't, not warm and fuzzy, doesn't want to connect with people, And it talks about character. True leadership is always begin with the inner person. It talks about, that's why some people like Billy Graham is able to draw more and more followers to him as time goes on. People can sense the depth of character. When someone has character, you want to get to know that person. It's something about someone that's sincere, that sincerely wants to serve. Remember Mother Teresa? Sincerely wanted to serve people. She wasn't doing this to be famous. She wasn't doing this to be Mother Saint Teresa. She wasn't doing that for that. She was doing it because she genuinely cared. And someone probably saw her doing it and started to tell everybody. She wasn't trying to be famous. It wasn't her dream to be, I'm going to be famous and people are going to write books about me. No. Usually people that are serving, their intentions was never to get to be famous. It's just that they served in such a capacity. They were just so passionate about what they were doing, and they just went out there, despite the odds, and people took notice. Relationships talks about relationships, right? The second clue why people don't connect. Remember Claude with John Maxwell? He had to build that relationship with Claude before he started to connect with his staff. That was very important because Claude had more influence than him. So remember we talked about you have to connect with that person in your organization, in your church, in your corporate office that has more influence than you. Wherever that's at, find that person that has more influence than you and seek some guidance under that person. Humble yourself. Build that relationship. The more relationship you build with people, the more influence you have. The more people can say that that guy, that woman, great character, great person, um, loves people. The more that's how it is. People be if someone vouches for you, people come knocking at your door. That's just how it is. Not what you know is who you know. Build relationships. Knowledge, what they know. Information is vital to a leader. Right? And that's what I talked about before. When you go into a leadership position, you have data. But you need to understand that there's and I'm going to go further and say that there's some intangibles that you need to understand. You need to understand the information. You need to understand how this organization works. Who's who? What are the goals that they're trying? What are the initiatives that they're trying to achieve? What are the objectives? What what are the strengths of your team, each member of your team? How are you? How does the company? What are the company values? What are their beliefs? You have to do your homework. You have to have that information before you go in talking about something. I'm the leader. Follow me. When people see you like that, and you just come in and trying to lead when you don't understand the landscape, they take note of that, and they see you as someone that they see you as inexperienced. Let's put it that way, as a leader. The next we have intuition, what they feel. That's one thing about leadership that I've always admired about leaders, and I pray that I have developed that. I have a sense of the pulse of my team. If someone is an extraordinary employee and they're making touchdowns and doing what they're supposed to do every day, and they suddenly fall off, I can sense that. Or they come to work and they're just not in that mood. I can sense that. They don't really have to say anything to me. I will take them aside and like, hey, what's going on? Do you need some time off? What's going on at home? You want to have lunch? I genuinely care about people. He talks about the energies, he talks about the intangibles like energy, moral, timing, momentum, all these intangible things. The feelings, the love. I know sometimes we don't like to talk about those type of things in a corporate sense, but they exist because we're dealing with human beings. Once you understand that you're dealing with human beings, you're halfway there into influencing people. Experience. Is something about when people know that you've done it before. Yeah. And experience, I think experience is more for you than anything. If you know you've been through a challenge in your life, and for me, I went through some challenges in an organization. I went through an organization that didn't have good leaders. I mean, we were working like dogs, and it was just challenging to just be an employee. But I just kept at it. I just kept at it and kept at it and kept at it. And when it was finally time for me to leave, I left. But I left with the sense, with the feeling that I can go into any organization and make that stuff work. Whatever they throw at me, whoever they throw at me, I can make it work. I can do a great job despite of the environment. And that's what that organization taught me that I left. So whenever you have that experience that you've done something hard and you're able to communicate what you've done to whatever new team that you're on without bragging, you just let them know. And people respect that. And sometimes, unbeknownst to you, someone will probably come and let the team know that what you've done in the past. And that's more credibility. That's the relationship thing, right? See how it all ties in together? And that goes into with the next one, past successes, what we've done. Nothing speaks to followers like a track record. That goes into the same thing. Every time I extend myself, took a risk, and succeeded, followers had another reason to trust my leadership ability, and to listen what I had to say. So every time you show yourself to your team as capable, and it's just not the work. It's just not the work. But you're capable of standing up for your team members. Yeah. That's past success. That's part of that success too. That's part of that capability. Are you capable of standing up for your team members when your client is riding this team member? Are you capable of having a conversation with that client to have them stop that type of abuse or bullying? Are you capable? Are you courageous enough? Because I'm going to tell you one thing. When you do that for your people, it's all respect after that. It's all respect. And I'm talking from experience. It's all respect. You got to have the cojones. You understand what I'm saying? To go to a client that's paying you millions of dollars, but your teammate is dreading coming to work because this client is just on them for no reason, just because they don't like him or her. Yeah, I've been there. And if you could stand up for that person, if your team understands that you're the type of person that go to bat for them, it's over. Enough respect. Wherever you go. I don't care if people will be talking about you years later. So, now the next is ability. The bottom line for followers is what a leader is capable of. They want to know whether the person can lead the team to victory. Everyone wants victory. Can we get from where we are now to where you said that we will be in the next quarter or the next year? Can we get there? Can you lead us there? Despite how we mess up, despite how much we cry, despite us, because people don't care they don't care nothing about their actions. They're looking at your actions. Can you lead us there despite ourselves? Despite that we don't like coming in on Sundays or Saturdays or whatever. Can you lead us there? And if you're that type of leader with influence, people will gladly come. People will gladly come and support you. All right. Our next topic is leadership without leverage. And I like this one because it talks about, pastors. Pastors are, churches and organizations like that where people volunteer. That always impressed me because it was just always something that I was like, wow, these people have like 50,000 people, 25,000 people, 10,000, 2,000, whatever. It was just always those numbers will impress me because there's no reason for anyone to be in that church or that organization. But they fall in love with this woman or this man that's at the helm. And that woman or that man has just always impressed me. I mean, from the treasurer, the ushers and everyone is volunteering their time. I mean, I'm sure that now there's probably different, levels where people get paid or whatever for what they do, but the parishioners, they're voluntarily coming to an organization, voluntarily taking out their wallet and giving it to this organization. Now, if that's not influence, I don't know what is. So that's always impressed me when someone can lead someone without having a title, without being, director of marketing, without being VP of cybersecurity. That always impressed me when people can just walk in and, just get that respect, get that admiration from people and it has nothing to do with their title or position. Always impressed me. Now, and then he talks about from commander to private to commander in chief. Wonderful story. Abraham Lincoln is one of my favorite presidents. And he talks about how Abraham Lincoln, he talks about how back in those days where if you organize a group of volunteers, you're automatically given the title of or the role of leadership because you brought those volunteers. And Abraham Lincoln wasn't good at it. It says that, and he was ranked as captain, and goes on to say he knew nothing about soldiering. He had no prior military experience. He knew nothing about tactics, and he had trouble remembering the simplest military commands. I mean, that's it. That man just didn't know anything about, military stuff. And he failed miserably. He started off a captain, and then by the time he was out, he was a private. But, and that goes for some of us here, to understand that just because you don't understand your role today, you coming in as a new leader, just because you don't understand how to delegate and how to influence people and how to communicate properly and all those attributes, how to coach and how to all these different types of leadership styles. You don't know all that stuff, and just because you don't know that stuff today, don't feel bad. Look at Abraham Lincoln didn't know nothing about the military, and he became commander-in-chief, making the decisions for the military. So what I'm saying is that you can develop yourself as a leader. You can develop yourself as a person of influence. Always remember that leadership is not something that people are born with. Yes, there's people that has a bent for leadership, right? They're born that way. It seems like it comes natural to them. But they still had to develop themselves into a leader. They still had to read the books, go to the seminars, talk to people, have the mentors. They still had to do all that stuff. They still had to learn. That's all I'm saying. They still had to learn and grow to become the leader that they are today, to make you feel like it's just all natural. They still spent hours and hours in the mirror practicing that speech that so flows out of their mouths and make them seem like it just comes out so naturally. No, they had to learn to do that. They had to learn to do that. And you will learn to do it also. Give yourself some time, give yourself some patience, and you will learn to do it also. And I want to just end this with this. And this is according to the law of influence. It says, the leadership proverb that says, he who thinks he leads but has no followers is only taking a walk. No matter what anybody else may tell you, remember that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And don't forget to like this episode. Don't forget to go ahead and press that like button. Don't forget to comment any questions that you may have, and don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell notification, because on Sundays I'm coming out with this at about 3:30 every Sunday, and you can join me and we can talk and we can chat about this. And get the book. Great book, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. I love this book. It's my book right here. So again, I want to say this before I end, just to make it a point. No matter what anybody else tells you, remember that leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm out of here. Peace.